OPEC just made a bold move that's throwing America's energy strategy off balance. For a while, it looked like the US had things under control. Domestic oil production skyrocketed. LNG exports boomed. And Washington was sending a clear message: we don't need you anymore. But OPEC isn't backing down. They've tightened their grip on global supply, raised prices on their terms, and reminded the US who still calls the shots in the oil world. This isn't just a pricing issue. It's a power struggle, and it's about to get serious. OPEC's not reacting on a whim. This is a calculated move. Here's why. US shale oil flooded the market, undercutting OPEC's dominance and threatening their market share. American energy exports to countries like India and Europe started eating into traditional OPEC territory. OPEC saw the challenge and responded with precision: cut production, control the market, push prices higher. The goal: reclaim the driver's seat and remind the world that OPEC still plays a central role in the global energy market. Trump's energy plan wasn't just about drilling for oil. It was about redefining America's global position. The strategy: drill big, drill fast, and dominate the market. Federal lands were opened for drilling. Production hit record highs. And for a while, it seemed like energy independence was within reach. And it worked. US exports surged. Prices dropped. And OPEC's influence took a hit. But there's a catch. Boosting production is one thing. Controlling the global market is something else entirely. Now, with OPEC pushing back harder than ever, the limits of that strategy are starting to show. OPEC isn't one big happy family. It's a group of countries with very different priorities. And the rivalry between Saudi Arabia and Iran is the most complicated of all. But right now, there's a temporary truce. Both countries have a common goal: push back against US influence in the global oil market. Iran recently called for OPEC to unite against US sanctions, while Saudi Arabia is using its production power to control prices. It's an uneasy alliance, but for now it's holding, and that makes OPEC's response even stronger. The moment OPEC made its move, the markets felt it. Oil prices shot up fast, with traders scrambling to adjust to the new reality. The combination of OPEC's supply cuts and sanctions on Russian oil left global markets in a tricky spot, and it's not just about crude prices. Energy stocks are moving, currencies linked to oil exports are fluctuating, and investors are watching for every hint of what comes next. For now, the market feels tense. The longer this drags on, the higher the risk of more price spikes and bigger shocks. The US produces a lot of oil, but it still needs help from the global market. Here's the problem. Not all crude oil is the same. American shale oil is light and sweet, but many US refineries are built to handle heavier crude, which mainly comes from OPEC countries. When OPEC cuts supply, those refineries can't just switch to local oil without costly upgrades. That leaves the US paying more to import alternatives or cutting back production. So while the US is closer than ever to energy independence, it's not quite there yet, and OPEC knows it. OPEC's move isn't just another market shift. It exposes a serious problem for the US. Yes, US oil production is booming, but here's the catch. Not all oil is the same. US refineries need heavier crude for certain products. And guess who controls that supply? OPEC. When they cut back, those refineries can't just flip a switch and find replacements locally. That means higher costs, tighter supply, and a scramble to adapt. Bottom line, the US isn't as energy independent as it seems. So what's next for the US? Two options are on the table: diplomacy or a counterstrike. Diplomatic talks could calm things down, but convincing OPEC to play nice isn't easy. Every member nation has its own agenda, and negotiating with a divided group is like herding cats. There's the retaliation route: flood the market with US oil, pressure OPEC, and force them to react. Sounds bold, right? But it's risky. One wrong move could backfire and send prices soaring even higher. Right now, US leaders are weighing every step carefully, knowing there's no room for mistakes. What's happening between the US and OPEC? The whole world is feeling it. Big oil importing countries like India, China, and Europe are watching closely. A prolonged standoff means rising costs and potential supply shortages, especially for nations that can't quickly pivot to new suppliers. Some are already making moves. India is locking in LNG deals with the US to reduce its reliance on OPEC. European nations are betting big on renewables, hoping to dodge future oil price shocks. This isn't just about what's happening now. It's a global power play, and the countries that adapt fast will come out stronger. Not everyone is struggling. In this standoff, some players are quietly winning, like Russia and Iran. They're stepping up to fill gaps, securing new energy deals in Asia and the Middle East. While the US and OPEC wrestle for control, they're expanding their influence. Meanwhile, countries like Malaysia and Vietnam are positioning themselves as regional energy hubs, ready to take a bigger role in global trade. In every crisis, someone gains ground. Right now, the fastest movers are locking in deals that will shape the future of energy markets for years. Let's bring this home for consumers. This isn't just global politics. It's money out of your pocket. Gas prices are rising steadily. Heating costs likely next in line, since higher transportation costs affect groceries, delivery fees, and retail. You'll feel it beyond the pump. In some regions, even electricity rates are linked to oil prices, which could hit households with unexpected spikes in their bills. How long will this last? That depends on what happens next. But if things stay unstable, those price hikes won't be going away anytime soon. OPEC isn't thinking about the next few months. They're playing the long game. This isn't just about today's prices. It's about controlling the market for years to come. Countries like Saudi Arabia and Iraq are expanding production capacity while carefully managing exports to protect their long-term market share. Iraq's recent discovery of a major oil field near Baghdad is just one example. While the US focuses on short-term wins, OPEC is securing its position for the next decade. The goal is simple: keep control, stay essential, make sure the world can't move on without them. The US isn't ignoring what's happening, it's adjusting. But the energy strategy is getting more complicated. Increased production from federal land sites and offshore reserves helped boost US exports. But that approach isn't enough to counter OPEC's latest moves. Now, there's a growing debate about the next step. Some push for doubling down on domestic production, while others argue it's time to pivot toward renewables and new energy technologies. The problem: neither option is a quick fix. Expanding oil production takes years. Renewable infrastructure can't replace oil overnight. This leaves US energy policy in a delicate balancing act, caught between long-term goals and immediate market pressures. Whenever oil prices spike, renewables take center stage. The question is, how realistic are they as a solution? Wind, solar, and battery technology are growing fast, but the global economy still runs on oil. Transitioning takes time, lots of it. Meanwhile, countries like China are heavily investing in clean energy while maintaining fossil fuel reserves to avoid shocks. For the US, diversifying energy sources is a smart move, but oil will remain a critical part of the mix for the foreseeable future. The reality: renewables are part of the answer, but they're not replacing OPEC's role anytime soon. Investors are on edge. Every OPEC announcement sends shockwaves.